Okay, so oh, sorry about that. Hello and welcome to today's practice. This is a 45-minute flow practice, and I just invite you to take any of the options or modifications that you would like to today to support your practice and your body, and really move with how you are feeling today, what you've kind of turned up with right now. So finding any seat that works for you. It might be on the heels, it might be cross-legged like me, you might even sit on a chair or any other props that serve when you first like to start off, and take those moments to just move side to side, maybe rolling the shoulders, checking in with how the back is feeling, and the spine, what you can notice in your physical form today. You might like to close down the eyes or just dropping the gaze towards the floor. Maybe notice where your hands have rested. And just feeling the sensation of your hands. Starting to notice the movement of your breath. Really the sense of rise and fall with your inhalation and your exhalation. And you start to bring all of your attention and focus onto the movement of breath. And it is the most simple yet most powerful and profound way of coming into your body, into your experience, and especially into your practice. Whether it's yoga or anything else you're trying to do to really cultivate more internal awareness and help to balance out and harmonize the system. Let's just take 3 more really intentional breaths here. And then on your next inhale, reaching the arms up. Nice big stretch as you reach the arms out wide, maybe your palms connect. And then exhale, you can slide out the mouth, bring the hands through heart center. Beautiful. If you need to change your seat, go ahead. Otherwise, we'll move through our 4 tapping points. So coming out underneath your eyes here on the cheekbones, or the starting point of the stomach meridian. So a really grounding point. And it starts to energize, it's more of a yang-based meridian. And if it is feeling tender or sore today, then just holding the point or lightly massaging the point works perfectly well. And you can even, if you are quite sensitive to the touch, you can actually bring your hands out in front and imagine you're just tapping the space in front of your face. It feels a bit funny, but it does actually still affect and influence the energy channel running underneath. Beautiful. Moving down to our second point, so under the collarbones, and it's not out too wide, right? So if I find that little sticky out bits here, top of the clavicle, and then I just come down slightly. My hands are still somewhat in towards the center of the chest or the sternum. Make up a little notch with your fingers, and tapping here. That'd be nice to sigh out of the mouth. Beautiful. Then we come bringing the hands in together, dropping down through the center, onto the thymus or the central meridian. And tapping here. I like to use both hands now, kind of find this little rhythm. It tends to feel quite nice, but you might prefer using one hand, or you might again prefer not to tap, especially if it's tender. And sometimes if it's not normally tender, but it is today, just really respecting the body's wisdom and slowing it down and just working a little slow with it. Beautiful, and then we come out to the side, and so somewhat in line with the nipple, if you come out and then drop down a little bit, that's kind of into the side body here as we tap. And this first point is the end of the spleen meridian. But if you bring your hands underneath, you're directly under the line of the nipple here. This is actually the spleen neurolymphatic point, which is also a really effective point to tap or massage. So if you move your hands around those 2 points, you might notice one feels a little more tender. And that's the one you can stay on and work with. And again, you can either tap, you can massage, you can just hold the point, Feeling any tension. Beautiful. Then release from there and just shake out your hands. Then rubbing your hands together and shaking them out. Love the energy in your arms. So we're going to take the middle finger of one hand and bring it in between your two eyebrows. And then different to how we normally do our hookup, we're going to take the other middle finger and then bringing it to the back of your head. So I'm in that, what's it called, occipital ridge, and then so you can come up back at the skull, that part of the bone, and you find that little dip in at the back, a little dent. You can place your other middle finger there, and then pressing into those points and gently pulling up. And taking a nice full inhale and sighing it out the mouth. Take 2 more breaths like that. Beautiful. Release there, and then we'll come into our regular hookup. So I'm going to change, actually bring my other middle finger back onto the third eye space, so just between the 2 eyebrows. And the other finger now comes into the belly button. And you push in and then pull up. And then take those breaths. And you might notice a slight change in your breath or a sigh or even a yawn. And your body will kind of respond differently, everyone's does. But that is an indication that you are sort of hooking the energies up. So the subtle energies of our body, we want them to be coherent and smooth and really talking to each other. And there's a little techniques that we can influence our flow with our own hands, which is pretty cool. Beautiful, and then shaking that off as well. Maybe a moment to roll out your wrists, a few different circles. Big circles with your shoulders. And then coming off with your props, if you were sitting on any props, and making your way into a tabletop position. Setting yourself up, spreading the fingers, wrists under the shoulders, knees under the hips. And then just a moment to kind of shift yourself forward and back. I like to do this to begin to bring the weight into the hands and really noticing how those wrists are feeling. What does it feel like as your shoulders come over the wrists? And so easing into it, and it might be you take a moment just to sit back and roll them out a little bit more, or bring your hands back so you turn your fingers in towards the knees and bring in some more space for the joints, especially our wrists and our feet, because in a Vinyasa practice they do so much work. Otherwise you could make circles over the hands, so rounding forward. Notice how you start to feel that through the shoulder blades in the back, and then let's circle the other way. Beautiful. And then start to take it through a few rounds of your cat-cow. So allowing the belly to drop, find that arch, look for length and space across the shoulder blades. You might even like to turn the hands out a little. I like to think about creating a little more space here, but still try and keep length through the back of the neck. And then curl and round. Press the floor away, dome. Taking a few rounds, exploring this movement, opening up through the back and the spine. And if you want to add a little juice to this, have a go with trying to keep your feet flat. Yeah, so you can tuck the toes, but have a go with them flat. And as you round onto cat pose, press down to the tops of the feet. And can you hover the knees from here? And then so slowly with control, so you're really using those abdominals, place the knees down, come back to your cow and round. And if you prefer, you can always tuck the toes, but have a go. This is kind of a fun way of keeping that connection through the inner thighs as well, and really activating from the feet all the way up to the lower belly. Maybe one more. And then back. Beautiful. Neutral spine. Option to sit straight back on the heels or tap your toes. Come back to a toe squat. Open your arms out. Nice cactus arms, lifting the chest. And then right elbow or right arm underneath the left. Now you might come into full eagle arms. You might prefer just to cross the arms over the body, like you're giving yourself this little hug. Or you can also just bring your forearms together. Otherwise, right underneath, and maybe your hands stay apart. Okay, if your arms don't go all the way together like this, it's okay. It's just generally your anatomy. If they're here or wherever they are, think about drawing your shoulders out of the ears, arms away. Take a nice full breath. Beautiful, then opening out, arch. And it's time to the other side. So left arm, choosing your variation, dropping down. If you're still on your toes, see if you can stay with it a little longer. You can always come off if you need. Breathing into this, opening the back of the feet. As long as it's not causing kind of too many issues with your feet. It's a really beautiful thing to do and get used to. It starts to open out the feet, bring a little more space. And again, that fluidity for the energy through the feet. Open out. Shake those arms. Hands come down. You can shake out the feet. Walk your hands forward, tucking the toes. Let's lift up and back and find downward facing dog. And from your down dog, starting to pedal out through the feet, really look for that movement. So explore in any way that feels good for you. Maybe you start to take your heels side to side. And then we'll take about 3 breaths just in your down dog. Again, you're welcome to stay with movement. You can keep soft bending your knees or just pedaling out through the feet. And then from the down dog, we're going to take a few rounds of movement through to high plank. So rising onto your toes, ripple forward. Now, if you'd like, bring your knees down and support here. Just come forward on the knees and then tuck and lift up and back. Otherwise, you can just hold in your high plank. So coming forward, soft bend, draw it up and back. And a few more like this. Rise up, ripple forward, and then back. Take 2 more like that, pressing down through your hands, starting to warm up, moving from the center of your body. Beautiful. And then rising up onto the toes, this time gazing forward. Start to walk your feet up towards the top of your mat. As much of a bend in the knees as you'd like. For your forward fold, you might like to keep your elbows resting on the knees or clasping opposite elbows, sorry. And if you're holding opposite elbows, see if you can bring your hands all the way around. So you're actually holding onto the outside of your elbows, right? Not just the arms. Holding there. There's just some beautiful points that you can hold onto here, which actually is very calming and soothing for the body. So just holding here. Maybe a little rock forward and back as you ground down through your feet. And then as you release, press down through the feet. Bring as much activity, like you're drawing this earth energy up through your legs, extending, lift the arms, maybe lift your gaze, and hands through heart center. Take a moment, palms down beside you, this active Tadasana, going down through the feet once again. And then just take a moment, notice how the upper body is feeling, any sensations through your arms and your hands, as you gently rock forward and back on the feet. And then see if you can rise up onto your toes. Take a moment of balance, and then sink back. See how far you can sink your weight back into your heels. Maybe you lift your toes, maybe you play with lifting out onto the heels. Got a wall like me, you can hold there. And then rising back up. Squeezing in, take 1 more, lean back. Remember, you might just lift the toes. And then up, onto the toes. And back down. Settling and grounding down through your feet. With your breath, inhale, let's reach the arms up. And exhale, forward fold. Halfway lift, hands to your shins or your knees. Bend the knees, plant your hands, and now step your right foot back. Stay on your right toes, keep your right hand down, sink into your left knee, and we'll open for this crescent twist, low crescent twist. Sitting up through your top hand. So think about how light you can be with this grounded arm, your right arm. So you might even hover it off the floor. But hugging in through the inner thighs, lengthening up. And then let that hand come down, step back, downward facing dog. Rising onto the toes, ripple forward for high plank. Option those knees to come down right away, or holding in your high plank, and we'll lower all the way to the belly for this first one. Lowering down, release your feet, pressing into the tops of the feet, lifting up for a baby cobra. So you might hover your hands, and you're just using that to really feel that the lift is coming from your back, your shoulders, and your chest. And if the hands are down, you can keep them soft, but try not to force any further, and check in with your neck. So are you kind of forcing it back? Find length. And it really allows the energy to move over your head as you're doing this. Drawing belly button to spine, or the sense, obviously you're not forcing, but there is a drawing in towards the center. One more breath. And then tucking your toes, pressing down through the hands. Maybe you take it back through tabletop or child's pose, but we'll meet in downward facing dog. And then inhale, reach your right leg high. Just as high as you would like to, extending out through the foot and lengthen. Gazing forward, start to bring the knee towards the nose. And then if you need to give it any helping hand, you can rise up onto those right fingertips. You might use your right hand to hoist it forward, or just step in between the hands. Coming up onto your fingertips, stay on your left toes, and this time we'll reach for crescent lunge, or your crescent warrior. And you might even like to play, you can change where your hands are if you prefer, and then explore your back leg. So if you want to bring a little bit more bend into the knee, notice how that changes the kind of way your pelvis sits here and how it feels into your lower back compared to if you straighten it. So just notice how that feels and where you can find more awareness and engagement through the inner thighs. Right, so you want to really keep that activation hugging in, drawing in towards the center, lifting up towards the crown of the head. Take 2 full breaths here, grinding down through those feet. Bring more awareness and activity as much as you can. And then as you exhale, hands come down, fingertips to the floor. You can keep them hovering off the ground, gazing forward, and then just step yourself with control to the top of your mat. Exhale for your forward fold. Press down through the feet. Inhale, rise up. And hands through heart center. Beautiful. With the breath, reach up. And forward fold. Take that halfway lift, hands to the shins. Bending your knees, plant the hands, step your left foot back. Once again, stay up on those back toes. Left hand plants, right arm reaches to be open into the twist. And same thing, you can think about becoming really light through your left hand. So it's like you're being pulled with this top hand being lifted up, and you can hover, and then find that activation through those inner thighs once again. So we're trying to bring the awareness and attention to the legs. One more breath here. And exhale, plant the hand down. Let's step it back, downward facing dog. Now your option, you can come down for baby cobra again, or any other variation, otherwise we'll come through our upward facing dog. So a few options again, as you shift forward for high plank, you might still want to bring your knees down, okay? And support so you're not collapsing through the back. And then you would lower down halfway. Now I'm going to transition onto the tops of the feet and then come into my upward facing dog from here. And if you're working with that strength, that'll lower down through chaturanga, this is a really beautiful way of doing it, rather than coming all the way down to the ground. So you keep the integrity and awareness through your arms as you're building that strength. Otherwise, if you know where you're going, of course, just taking your vinyasas as you like. And hold for a moment in downward facing dog. And then left leg rises. Reaching as high as you would like to. And explore that. Send energy or activate out through your foot. And then knee towards the nose. Maybe you step it through. Maybe you give it a little helping hand to bring your left foot up. Stay on the back toes of your right foot. And then rise for our crescent lunge. And again, maybe you bring the arms down. Maybe you bring more of your focus and attention to your legs and again play. So what happens if you bend your back knee? I always notice if I bring a little bend into the back knee, my pelvis can kind of tuck a little bit more, and I tend to be able to find that squeezing of the inner thighs a little better. So sometimes I like to do that to find the activation and then extend it back afterwards, so that it actually feels a little bit more active and I know where I want to be. And so just using it in that way to be curious and explore the sensations in your body. And how we bring more integrity to a pose. Right? We're looking to bring that strength and awareness. Take 2 more breaths where you are. And then take the hands down, framing your foot, gazing forward, and then with that same control, really mindfully step your foot to the top of your mat. And folding over your legs. Sink down through the feet, rise up. Lift and hands through heart center. As arms come down beside you once again, find your moment of pause. So grounding down through your feet, and just a full round of breath, but really intentionally observing what there is to observe in your body right now. And maybe it's your breath, maybe even it's the thoughts of how you feel. Beautiful, little shake. Okay, so from here, you can either, you're welcome to just step off of your mat. It's sometimes nice to have your feet on the floor, whatever that is, or you can turn to the long end of your mat. Doesn't matter which way. And just find a nice wide-legged forward fold shape. So your toes can be slightly turned in. Let's see how it feels on your hips and your knees. Some people like their feet out or even more parallel. And you might explore something different today and see how it feels and be like, oh, I love that, or ooh, I don't really love that. Take the hands to your hips, lift and lengthen. And then we'll start to fold forward. So you want to try and find that tilt forward from the pelvis to bring a nice length through the back. So as you're here, we're going to hold halfway to start with. So coming down like you're creating a table, like you can come and put a tray on your back. And then invite as much bend into the knees. You can see I'm leaning back, hips into the heels. See if you can bring it forward a little more. Your option is to reach the arms out in front as well, or just keep your hands at the hips. If it puts a lot of strain into your back by reaching the arms, then keep them at your hips, I would suggest. When you play here for a breath. Get a nice full inhale. And then as you exhale, we'll continue to fold forward, wherever that is for you. Release your hands. If you've got blocks, you might like to have your hands up on the blocks or anything else that brings the floor a little bit closer. You can either keep your hands down in front, you might walk into your ankles here, you might even walk your hands through and underneath. Very much dependent on your flexibility and the space there is in your body. We'll take about 3 to 5 full breaths here. Again, you can bring as much bend into your knees as you would like to. Taking one more full breath. And then find a halfway lift. Ground down through your feet. Maybe your hands come back to your hips and come all the way up. This time, see if you can reach your arms and rise up onto your toes while you're here. Whoop. A really big star. And then lowering it down. Adjust your feet again as we start to bend into one knee and then into the other. And so my knees are going over my ankles, because that feels fine. But adjust your feet where you like to be. So as you're moving, you might take the feet a little wider. And initially we start off a little bit higher. Just notice how it feels through your ankles, your feet, and your hips. And then you might start to come down a little more. So towards this variation of Skandasana. And maybe you come over to the other side. But you might just prefer to keep this up higher and even just down your knees and move from side to side. Okay, it can be even smaller. Just checking into how that feels. And if you're coming down lower, Open out to the side. You could play with moving without your hands on the floor. Be really mindful that it's a little bit more intense. Okay, try not to force anything. Opening out, exploring into those hips. Taking one more to each side. We'll come back through the center, pressing down through your feet and rise all the way up. Reach the arms. Hands to your hips. If you're out on the long edge of your mat, step forward. If you're just out to the side, step your feet back in. Give your legs a little shake. Give your arms a little shake. Beautiful. Reach your arms up. Inhale. Exhale on your forward fold. Find your halfway lift with your breath. And then planting your hands, let's take it back. Either downward facing dog, or you're welcome to move through your round of flow from here. So it might be baby cobra, you might be using those knees to support, or you might be coming down through your low push up with the knees off the ground and transitioning. But make sure you feel nice and strong and stable here. Meeting in our downward facing dog. Right leg rises. Bending that knee, option just stay here with a bent knee. Maybe you roll out the foot in little circles. Or feel free to come more towards your scorpion dog. And if it's confidently in your practice, let's bring it on over into wild thing. You can sink those hips and then really pressing up, opening up. Beautiful. Gazing down, right hand comes back, reaching your right leg high. Drawing knee towards the nose. Again, any helping hand it might need. Rising up onto your fingertips, back heel comes down, open it out, warrior two. And you might like a little bit of that movement, just sinking in and out. Gazing over that middle finger of that front hand. And we'll pause and hold for about 2 full, really active, intentional breaths. Little reach forward, turn your front palm and find your reverse warrior. Back to warrior two, send forward, elbow to the knee, top arm reaches straight up. Option to take it further with your side angle. So you might reach the arm alongside the ear, you might bring it down beside you, and pause. Coming back through warrior two. Straightening your front leg, hands to hips, and step the back foot in a little, although you don't have to. Extend the arms, and then finding your triangle. So I like to have a little bend in my knee, and I don't really like to pop my hip out as much. I like to think about stabilizing, so it's very much up to you. And then lengthening and reaching up. So if you have a feather, feel free to come down, but just notice maybe where you lose the integrity into the side body. And what does that feel like for you? So taking it into your shape. I'm ideally looking for length into the side body, and I tend to have a very tight side body. You can feel it right away. 2 full breaths here. And then inhale, come back, reverse the triangle. And then gazing over that front foot as you bend your front knee, lift onto the back toes. If you're working with your little hops, you can bring your hands down, maybe hop back. Otherwise, just stepping back, maybe straight to down dog or a child's pose, holding there. Or let's move it through another round of flow. Remember, modify for your flow. Don't have to force anything. Just as you go, be mindful. Take 2 full grounded breaths in downward facing dog. Maybe you notice the difference between the left and right side of your body right now, especially your legs. And then inhale, left leg rises.
Open out or bending that knee, maybe a little movement. Maybe open up for scorpion dog. Or if you're taking it over, let's come into wild thing. You can always modify by bringing that bottom knee down. I like to sink those hips and then really press it up nice and high, opening out. Gazing down, we'll transition back. Left leg high. Knee towards the nose. Any helping hand it might need to get there. Just adjust for your body. Back heel comes down, reaching the arms up and over, and then adjust your stance for your warrior two. Make it feel strong. It's not necessarily where you think the pin should be, what it should look like, but where you feel really grounded and strong, especially through this front knee. As I sink forward, it's kind of the front knee's tracing over that second toe. So it might mean walking your foot out a little bit more so you can press it wide and it feels strong and stable. And your gaze can be over the middle finger of that front hand, the left hand. Two full breaths here. Then reach forward to your front palm and we'll take it back for a reverse warrior. Just think about this length, rather than it having to be always about end range stretch sensation, and it's about creating space. So even as I reach my arm up, I don't necessarily have to feel a huge stretch here. I'm thinking about creating space. And sometimes when the interoception or internal awareness isn't as strong, it's hard to feel anything, but it doesn't mean that you're not creating space. When we reach out, we're always creating space. So think more about activating down through the legs, strong with your legs, and then lengthening for space in the upper body. Coming forward, keep that bend in the front knee. Let's take our variation of side angle. You can start elbow to knee, top arm reaches, again, space. Maybe the top arm comes over, so it can be nice to sweep it down in front and lengthen. You want to take this left hand further, go for it. Look for that stabilization and activity through the legs once again. Inhale, rising up, straightening your front leg this time. Hands can come to hips, you might step it in a little, you might not. And exploring what triangle pose means to you. So arms can reach out. Again, I like a slight bend in the front knee because I hyperextend. If you don't have that problem, don't worry about it. But for me, you can see my knee tends to want to lock back. So I like a little bend to keep that awareness and then coming over. And that same thing of reaching up, use the top hand as your space creator. You're lengthening and expanding into the shape as opposed to forcing it somewhere and collapsing into it. Let's take 2 more full breaths here in triangle. And inhale, reach up, reverse the triangle back. Coming over. Lift up on those back toes. If you're working with the hops, you can step halfway and take your hops back. Otherwise, downward facing dog. Maybe around a flow, we'll meet in child's pose. So if you prefer to come there right away, then meeting in child's. And then let that come down for a moment. Of course, if you prefer to stay in down dog, stay in downward facing dog. But wherever you are, use this moment for noticing, for pausing intentionally, becoming aware of how maybe the left side feels a little different to your right. Or maybe it feels the same. Be curious to what is there. Be curious to what is not there. Taking one more round of breath where you are. And then we'll meet back in downward facing dog. And just using down dog to transition to the top of your mat. So rising on your toes, you might like to step, walk, or even hop. Come up to the top of your mat. This moment of being in forward fold. Pressing down through your feet and rise up. Now maybe you'd like to reach the arms and rise up onto your toes. And then bringing it all the way down. So we'll come into tree pose here. You start off on your left foot. So grounding down through that left foot. And then you can bring maybe your heel onto your ankle. If you're feeling a little off balance, it's a nice way to support. Or bring the foot up a little higher. Just see where you'd like to take it. You might bring that foot in, holding here, and then grounding down through your standing leg, that left leg. You're going to have hands at heart center. You might prefer to bring them up. I quite like using that little hook up we did at the start, where you bring middle finger to the space in between the eyebrows and the other one to the back of the head. I don't know why, I think it feels cool here. You might like to have a go with that, drawing towards the center. Just notice how it feels. You might be like, I don't like that at all, Nicole. Arms can come up, just keeping them where they are. And really focus on your balance today by pressing the foot into the leg into the foot for that connection. Taking 2 more breaths where you are. Beautiful. Then the hands come down. Just draw that knee in towards you for a moment, hovering up the leg, and then taking the foot down. And just a moment, finding that pause. So a round of breath, you can turn your palms forward. You might like to close down the eyes. And you can sigh out the mouth. And again, notice the difference between the right and left side of your body. And as you're bringing attention to your right foot, same thing again, so setting up. And try and come into, whenever we're doing the other side, with like no expectation. Don't expect it to be the same as the first side. Be really curious and then grateful for where you can go on this side. So it might be the same, but it might not be. It doesn't matter. So sitting up where you'd like to go. Again, it could be hands to heart center. You might like them over. To flip the fingers around. Take another one of these. I think it's quite fun. Up to you. Just noticing, see if you can bring your attention to that foot, your left foot, and all the little movements. See how hard it's working. And as much as it's working hard, notice if there's a sense of ease and grounding, as if your foot's really connecting to the surface beneath you, or if it feels like it's fighting with the surface beneath you. And can you, if it's happening, you shift the intention to really soften, even though it's having to balance you here, to find this connection with the ground beneath you, with the earth beneath you. Take 2 more breaths here. Beautiful. And start to draw that knee in towards the chest. And the left knee lift up. And then gently placing it back down. In just a moment, take your pause and soft knees. That's intentional. Can you feel the difference between each side? And then a nice full breath into the nose. And sighing it out the mouth. And give everything a little shake. Beautiful. So we're going to make our way down onto the floor, but we'll come down using a chair pose. If you prefer not to do that, then you can just come to the floor. We're going to come down to the back. Otherwise, sinking your weight into your heels. Take a moment, reach up, Utkatasana, chair pose. And then maybe your hands at heart center to see how slowly you can lower down, like you're looking for a very small chair. You keep going down, you might have to lift up with your toes. Maybe you kind of fall back, coming all the way down. And then I'm going to curl down. Now, if you'd like to have a block or blanket next to you for supported bridge, you can do that. Otherwise, rolling down. See how much control. Bring yourself to the floor. Walking your feet in, shoulders rolling back and down. And like you're setting up for bridge pose, take a moment just to feel the back of your body in connection with the floor.
And then inviting or initiating this movement of pelvic tilt, so tilting the pelvis forward to lift your lower back off the floor, and then rounding it back down. And taking a few rounds like this, tilting forward and back. Beautiful, and then we'll take it either through undulating bridges, so lifting up and lowering down with your breath. Otherwise, tilting back, pressing down through your feet, find that squeezing over the thighs and coming up to your bridge pose. Your option to just hold here, or again, stay with that movement. If you want a little more, there's space here, you can interlace the fingers and really walk your shoulders in and underneath. So your chin is coming towards your chest a little more, hugging and press down through the feet. Taking one more breath. And then slowly making your way back down. Pausing at the bottom, take a nice full breath. And then your option to take one more like this. If you have full wheel in your practice, you want to reach those arms up and over and take Dhanurasana, then please feel free. Otherwise, another round with bridge pose as you're ready, or moving through undulating. Still going to have an option for supported after this if you're not already there. Again, taking your back into here, holding for what feels like 3 to 5 breaths. And just as and when you're ready, coming down. And as you come down, just coming back to those little pelvic tilts. Even as you release out of the back, it's quite a nice way of doing that. And then you might like to bring your feet a little bit wider and further apart and let those knees gently move from side to side. So soft twist before you bring your knees right in towards the chest. So when you come into this kind of full spinal extension, ideally you want something in between before bringing your knees into your chest, which is like full flexion, which is quite an extreme end of each spectrum. So just allowing your body to kind of catch up and integrate and assimilate is a nice idea. And then your option, maybe you would just prefer knees towards the chest, or we'll take it into your supported bridge. If you don't have any props today, you can just bring your legs up towards the ceiling. You might like to wriggle yourself over to a wall. If you've got a wall, you can bring your legs up like that. And you're welcome to keep the feet down. It's a little bit more grounded as a supported bridge. Or for supported waterfall or shoulder stand here, you reach the legs up. Option of the arms. But really, many a variation to how you'd like to finish the practice. So it might just be a little movement of knees to chest. Feel free to take that. Be here for about 5 full breaths. No, you can always come down before that. Taking the things that you need. Just taking about 2 more breaths as you are. And really slowly and gently starting to think about bringing yourself out of the shape. Mindfully, so try not to rush as we kind of start to slow the practice down. So you let everything settle and ground. And you might like knees to chest or any kind of spinal twist. Rolling out the natural movement your body's calling to do to finish. And as we come towards Shavasana for these last moments together, you might like to lie out on your back in Shavasana with the arms and legs away from the body. You might prefer to slide on the side or any other variation, or you might prefer to come up to a seated position to close like we started. Up to you. So taking your time to come into your Shavasana. And then letting go of any of the conscious control of your breath. Allowing the weight of your body to feel heavy into the surface beneath it, wherever you are connected. Shavasana. Wonderful. And bringing your attention to your breath. Just taking a nice, full, big breath in through your nose. And sigh out the mouth, letting that go. Just imagine releasing the weight of your body. Again, one more like that. Big in through the nose. And sighing it out the mouth. Inviting movement through your fingers and toes. Stretching out and whatever way feels good. And you might like to roll to one side and come up to a seat if you're not already there. Or of course, feel free to stay as you are. We're going to finish with what we call the zip up. So you can imagine that you're really zipping in or locking in all of the awesome and vital and healthy energy you've just created in your body. We're going to seal it all in so it kind of remains with you. And it doesn't mean that you can't share your amazing energy with others, but it just means you can't get as drained. So a very simple little tool we can use whether you're lying or you're sitting. And a really great thing to do here is actually add an affirmation. So if you've got one yourself, go for it. Or you might want to use something like, I am vital and healthy and ready for my day. So bringing both hands, just come to the pelvic bone and you trace up and you say, I am vital and healthy and ready for my day. To the bottom of the lymph node, make a big heart in the sky. Or the space around you, let's do one more like that. I am vital and healthy and ready for my day. Big circle. And then this last one, we come all the way up. And now we're going to lock it in. So you imagine you're kind of locking yourself up, throwing away the key, bring your hands to heart center, and we'll close here. Taking a nice full breath and letting it go. Beautiful. Thank you all for joining me and practicing today. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And namaste.